Good morning. Welcome to Wednesday. Congregationalists feel very passionately about democracy. Not necessarily a political system America, but democracy, one person, one vote, the right of a congregation to determine its own future and fate. And early Congregationalists in England, rebelling against the Church of England, were persecuted and even martyred for that belief. I was doing some research at the Iliff Theological Seminary Library one day and came across this little leather-bound book called Congregational Martyrs. And it's a listing of people who died in the service of one person, one vote, the right of a congregation to determine its own future and fate, its faith. And so there's a story of a church in the 1700s kept records of congregational votes. And I don't remember all the details, but what I remember is the commentary by the clerk in those notes. There was a congregational meeting today on whatever the topic was, and it says, the Holy Spirit was very clear. The vote was, 90-1 or 90-0. But there was another vote at another time that was much closer than that, and it said, the Holy Spirit wasn't quite as clear, but the will of God has prevailed through the vote of the majority. Wow, that's a theological statement, I guess. And I remember a painful time in my last church in Denver where we were deciding this basic major question of, shall we stay in our building and invest in it, or should we sell it and move in and share a building with another congregation? It was a very contentious vote, and the decision to stay won by 6 votes. And the realization at the end was that was the majority, and that was the path that we were going to take. Maybe 1 or 2 people left over it, but the work after that contentiousness was the work of healing. And the congregation thrived in the years that followed. I say all this after the news yesterday that former President Trump was indicted again, this time for his role in trying to overturn the election results that were quite clear, with the lies about fraud. There should be some realization, some wake-up, some accountability that is recognized, and yet it isn't. The divide is just as deep and as hardened as before. And it is, it should be to the Congregationalists a grieving heart that the idea of one person, one vote, democracy is so under attack by authoritarians. That is absolutely not the way of our congregational churches, the United Church of Christ. And so this morning, as I was trying to think about what to say and maybe a prayer for the divided nation and something like that, I was reminded of Amanda Gorman and her rising rhetoric oratory. And so I want to just read part of the beginning of her poem, The Hill We Climb. This was read at President Biden's inauguration. When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace. And the norms and notions of what it just isn't always justice. And yet the dawn is ours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. We, the successors of a country and a time where a skinny black girl descended from slaves raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president only to find herself reciting for one. And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge a union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, and characters and conditions of man. And so we lift our gazes not to what stands between us, but to what stands before us. That is the task that stands before us, a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of humankind. And that seems to be fundamentally what we are at odds over, that some seek a world in which all of us are equal, all votes count equally, and others who have an authoritarian bent that is truly frightening. I pray for our country. I pray for each of us as we struggle to understand what is going on and how can we be an effective voice in it. One thing is to not stay silent, even though we're sick and tired of these things like indictments and lies. With that, have a grateful day.